real quick. I got really mad at Maria and yelled at her for like an hour because I was like, none of the conferences are built for parents. Parents never have a voice in these things. But it's our kids. And it's us in the trenches. So myself, I've added up, I spent 80 hours of my personal PTO time in IEP meetings for my son. And
I've never done the math because frankly I don't want to know the number because I don't want to cry.
yes. And, you know, also we're the ones that are tasked with memorizing like IDEA, ESSERS, all that. I know, I'm just giving background.
If it doesn't work, I can get closer to it.
Oh, okay. Okay, this is me. Mom to a 4-year-old little savage feral child and a dyslexic 14-year-old boy. Wife, data analyst for corporate America, whose name I can't say. Pro bono literacy and mental health advocate. For more about me, you can scan the QR code and it will take you to all of my contact info.
And all of her social media threads.
Yes. Thank
She
you.
has several, as do I.
Okay, that's really close. Okay,
Well, give people a chance.
Oh,
Some of them have their phones up.
okay. Tell me when.
Okay, phones are down.
Okay. Turned it out. And now this doesn't want to work. Oh, right. Almost had it. This clicker hates me. There it is. All right, Ash.
I have a single, I have one child. He is 14 years old. He happens to be dyslexic. Dyslexia runs in the Roberts family very strongly. And what we are discovering since my son's diagnosis is the dyslexic members of my family that we never know about. Lots of fun. I am a supply chain professional, specifically in the oil and gas industry. It's a field that I've been in for 15 years. I have an MBA. I finished my MBA in 2006. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I turned 50 this month. So, but because of my son, I am a very outspoken dyslexia and literacy advocate. Everybody can thank my mother for that. Because she was an extremely fierce, protective mother who yanked me out of elementary school when I was 8 years old because she didn't like how I was being taught. So she put a lot of gumption in me. I like that word, gumption. And I'm very unapologetic about it. For more about me, there's my QR.
Hopefully they're still working.
Yes. Just real quick, in 2018, I started the Dyslexia Initiative. I turned it into a nonprofit in 2019. It is unfunded. And I have a blog, and you're going to find out in the QR.
Next. Okay.
So we wanted to say thank you for being here, especially to the teachers in the room. We appreciate you. This isn't going to be a very easy thing in certain parts to listen to. But unfortunately, some of what we have to say we feel is very necessary because the parent voice is very critical to this process. We are the parent. We live and breathe what our children are going through on a daily basis. We deal with their intervention, we deal with their trauma, we deal with their tears, and we deal with our own personal cost as well. So the truth that we share might hurt a little bit. We don't seek to hurt anybody's feelings. We don't seek to, have any of you stand up, stomp a foot, march out of the room in anger. That's not our goal. That's not our intention. We are simply seeking to shed light on this path that we and all the parents like us need. So, thank you for being here. We apologize in advance if we hurt your
Yeah.
feelings.
And with that being said, I'm the one, or we both do, but I lean into the mental health with children because in my family, as in hers, I come from a family full of dyslexics. So I grew up watching the world through the eyes of my baby sister. And even though, I'll say this, okay, so I'll just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. So my baby sister tried to take her life at 13 years old. And I was the one charged with keeping her awake until they got her and got her to the hospital where she spent the next 8 hours having her stomach pumped to get all of the pills out. Now, she was never depressed. She was never anything like that. It was just that thought. The thoughts got into her head. As she would say, had my mom fought harder for her, maybe some of those thoughts wouldn't have popped into her head. But my mom did everything she could. But this is also for all the people that we have lost along the way, because I have lost an enormous amount of friends to either incarceration, overdose, every statistic out there. This is the anniversary of me losing not one but two friends of 25 plus years, 1 year apart to the day, when they both overdosed. So they were also both dyslexics, and they were both very wealthy. They came from Gwinnett County schools, which is like the gold standard, and they were thrown away and treated as behaviors instead of actually being taught to read.
Another quick caveat, we both tend to go down rabbit holes.
Yes.
So we've created a safe word, so if you hear us say squirrel, that's
Yes.
one of us trying to pull the other back.
Yes. If you hear squirrel, that means that we've gone off track. Okay, cool.
And here's where we would like to engage
The audience.
as our audience. So this is a poll that we're taking, and we'll go to an app that's on Lauren's phone, if you don't mind taking the poll, and answering, we have three
Yeah, three questions.
questions. We will share the results with you verbally, but we're not gonna do the poll up on the screen.
Yes. All right. How many? Ooh, popping it already. Okay, so how many of you in the audience have a child with the following? Dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, more than one, or none of the above? It's popping. Okay. Is that it? Oh, wait.
Mine says, yeah, how many of you were?
Did he go to another one?
Doesn't
Yeah,
actually.
it was a different question. It said how many of your parents or educators? or
Oh, is it
administrators?
like just moving ahead on its own? Oh, it might be the slide. You're right. I'm so sorry. No, the slide is aligned. It's okay. It's recording all your votes. So whatever you're voting on, it's
Well,
linking
we
to the
don't
right
have the-
QR code.
But we
So,
don't have the question.
They might,
okay, the first question is, how many of you in the audience have a child with the following? So that's
We
what
can-
that should be doing.
let's do it simply by raising hands. If
Yes.
y'all mind doing it that way?
Raise your
Does
hand.
anybody have any objections? Okay. Dyslexia. Dysgraphia. Dyscalculia. More than one? None of the above. Okay.
That's intimidating.
And let's see if this works.
You don't have, we can do this by yes and no.
Yeah.
Says full language mastery, reading and writing, possible for dyslexic without assistive technology, yes or no?
We can skip the QR codes and just do raising hands.
So
if y'all
if you
wanna
think, say yes, raise a hand,
vote. No.
no.
Okay.
Is there an answer?
Shockingly there is.
Yes.
It's a
It's
complicated.
a complicated question, which is why we ask it.
Yep,
And here's the question where you actually had a QR code.
yes, so sorry about that, they were duplicated. Okay, how many of you in here are parents?
Meaning parents of a dyslexic child.
No, just a parent in general,
Okay.
parents.
We meant different things.
Alright, how many of you fall in the bucket of K through 12 administrators?
Okay.
K through 12 teachers? Okay. More than one? None of the above? Okay, now even more intimidating. Okay. Now I'm really scared we're gonna hurt someone's feelings.
Okay. So, as parents, how did we at least skip? I don't know, sometimes it likes me, sometimes, there we
Oh,
go.
there it is. Okay. So, these are our beautiful little boys. First day of kindergarten. They were just as excited as they could be. There's my son trying his hardest not to show his crossing midline by holding the paper like that. And he was so excited on that day. He had great big eyes and he was like, oh, I'm gonna go learn everything. I'm so excited. Then
And that's purple was his favorite color. It no longer is. I think it's black, but he's 14. So excited. Here goes this journey. All the things we don't yet know. So, how did we know it wasn't going well?
So, this is my son in kindergarten by the 3rd week of kindergarten. And he, it's a hard picture for me to look at, so sorry. This was after, he'd spent 3 weeks and I'd already realized we came into school with an IEP, because I had an IEP at 3. And then they redid it in pre-K. And when we came into the district, they'd already diagnosed him with dyslexia and dysgraphia and expressive receptive language disorder. So 3 weeks into the school year, he was coming home to me like this already. He already knew that he wasn't like the rest of the kids. He'd already been labeled a behavior. Class dojo was being passed around heavily. In kindergarten, he was forced to actually go move the star himself. So the children could see where he was on the behavior chart. So essentially, it just crushed him. Because everything he wanted to do, all these great big ideas he had, everything he wanted to accomplish just wasn't doable. And suddenly, my bright, blue-eyed, just like spunky little kid who wanted to be a scientist, he's wanted to be a scientist his entire life. And he wanted to create a potion that could prevent my husband and I from ever dying. He went from that to this. It was that quick.
Ours wasn't quite that. We were in one of the top private schools in the city of Houston. I was paying a fortune for kindergarten. That was a lot of fun. But I'm a believer in, trying to get the best for your kids, trying to give them the best possible future that they can have. And where we were zoned public school wise, I said absolutely no. In fact, I was even more bold than that. I said hell no over my dead body. So we got into the school. It was great. It was a class size of 14. Good balance, boys and girls. It did tend to lean very much towards one race over others. We would have liked more diversity. Unfortunately, that's the drawback of some private schools, right? But they always hinted that he wasn't smart enough to be there. Pretty early on in kindergarten, they would just drop these little passive-aggressive type statements that he's not smart enough to be there. And when I would directly challenge and say, are you saying my child's not smart enough to be here? They would go, oh, but he's so sweet. So sweet. He likes to help. He's the teacher's pet. I don't care if he's sweet. I care if he can cut it. This is an aggressive curriculum, etc. We made it to, this was toward the end of first grade. How many of y'all are from Texas? Okay. So he's dressed like that because we have Go Texan Day every year. It's in February. It's right before the rodeo starts in Houston. Rodeo in Houston is one of the biggest events across the state of Texas. So we're celebrating Go Texas Day. This is about 30 days before one night while reading one of the ridiculous books that was sent home. He had to read every single night. That my very sweet child who never fell on the ground, never had a temper tantrum. He wasn't the kid that would kick and scream and whine until he got his way. Started screaming at the top of his lungs, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, while he slammed his head as hard as he could against my quartz countertop over and over and over again. That's not something I wish on anybody to experience. And I will say that both my husband and I just completely froze. We didn't even react right away. You sit there for a few seconds because you're going, I'm sorry, when did I leave reality and go into bizarro world? I don't understand what's happening at this particular moment. And then after, I don't know how many seconds passed, my husband finally snapped out of the trance and he went in and scooped him up out of the chair and took him to the kitchen table. I had an 8-inch butcher knife in my hand because I was trimming chicken. So I throw my knife in the sink and quickly wash my hands as fast as I can so I can go comfort my child. That's what threw both of us into a world that we didn't ask to be in. We didn't know how hard this was going to be. We didn't know the uphill battle that it was going to be. We didn't know anything. We didn't know what we didn't know.
And I will, with that, she said, something, my son had already been beaten down because in preschool, reward systems were just starting up. And so he had already started to base his day on where he landed on any given chart. There was nothing scientific about this. It was a random preschool teacher who was just putting dots. Oh, he responds real well to it. So us as very compliant parents, we made one at home to match the one they were using in school. Unbeknownst to me, I was further driving home the trauma because as good moms and naive new moms, we're told to do these things to make sure what they're doing at school works at home and vice versa, because there's always the question, do you see this at home? Right? So we did it. So this little boy had already been through that. He'd also already been through, in pre-K, he asked his SLP, am I a bad boy? And she said, why do you keep asking that? He goes, because I never get a green apple. I always get a red apple. And then later I found out, the next year, that year, that they had actually told him, Jesus doesn't love little boys that won't sit still on a carpet. And he said, Mommy, does Jesus love me? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, because the teacher said last year, if I couldn't sit still on the carpet and I was a bad boy, Jesus wouldn't love me. These, this is emotional, obviously. Sorry, I'm not trying to cry or get anybody crying, but this is something that like none of us get into. Like parent advocates, we don't do this because of anything other than the fact that we have no choice. Our children break like that. And me growing up in a house full or a family full of dyslexics and watching it ravage everybody, like from uncles like dying and me going to their room and handles of whiskey, like that's how one chose, and then like there was my aunt. I have the successful stories too. But unfortunately, the bad outweighs the good. And so he'd already been through it.
And we're going to say too that, some of what we say may come across as we're anti-teacher. We're absolutely not anti-teacher. We support teachers in all of the work that we do. In every profession.
Yeah.
I've been doing this supply chain for a real long time. There's bad apples in every profession. Sorry, there just are. So please don't take anything that we're saying as teacher bashing because that's not the case. But her experience is not isolated to her. That's not a one-off. My experience isn't a one-off isolated to me. I've spoken to thousands of parents, as has Lauren. This is happening in our classrooms across our country. Our dyslexic children, without getting identified, without getting the support, without getting the resources that they need, they're getting traumatized on a day-to-day basis. That's the unfortunate reality. And what we're going to show you when we get to the videos of our sons, because we interviewed our sons, they're 14, both of them. And they, now that we've pulled them out of the brick and mortar educational system, they're starting to open up and reveal all of their secrets to us. We've done a lot of crying in the last couple of weeks as they've told us things we never knew. Thoughts that they've had, experiences that they've had, things that they've denied telling us because they wanted to protect their mothers because they knew how hard we were fighting for them. And they didn't want to make it even harder. But they also believed there was nothing we could do to save them. This is one of the toughest advocates I've met. I'll go into a fight with anybody. She'll go into territory I won't even go into. So.
I'll just go ahead and say it. Due to the cost of my child's PTSD diagnosis induced inside the school setting, trauma diagnosis induced inside the school setting, numerous panic disorders, unspecified anxiety disorder because he had so many different anxieties that had popped up through the years. He developed separation anxiety in 3rd grade. Didn't have it when they did it in 1st grade, popped up in 3rd grade. So for me, when I went and used my parental and procedural safeguards finally, it was not due to his academics. It was due to his mental health. I was losing him, and I knew it. And I was told every single day.
And with that, I'm going to advance.
Yeah, go ahead. How did you learn? Yeah, there's one of them. So that, I was told with his evaluation in 4th grade, who, by the way, my support system back then, at that time, was this lady over here, Tina. She's been through thick and thin with me through this process of getting my son out. So I sued my school district, not once but twice. I went back the 2nd time, I will admit, to be petty, but it was because I signed a non-disclosure agreement that said I could not release any information, yet they exposed the non-disclosure agreement in public finances 2 months later. So there's that. I was like, okay, well, you said my kid's name in another kid's IEP meeting just now, and you just released a whole bunch of information that falls under FERPA, HIPAA, all the things, in another child's. Nope. Anyway, so yes, I'm the one that does that, and I know I'm squirreling a little bit, but please understand, no mom wakes up like this. We don't want to do these things. I didn't wake up wanting to sue and burn the world down. I wanted to do nothing other than be the mom that brings cookies up to the school. I wanted to be the room mom. I didn't want to be the mom that was triaging my kid and every other dyslexic kid in the school. And we were in Gillingham, embedded in our school. But we still had all of these dyslexic babies. And I couldn't just fight for mine. I had to fight for all of them.
So, how did we get here? It's not just that we wake up one day and we have a dyslexic child and they need us to advocate for them. It's not that simple. I wish that it was. It would be a better world if that were truly it. But in order to advocate for them, and I never won. For the record, I never won a real hardcore battle against my school district. I tortured them for 7 years, and I enjoyed it. But I never won. In the end, I ultimately lost. But for me, it was about reaching a certain point where we could terminate that relationship and move on to a better place. But to do that, to be taken even with a modicum of seriousness, we didn't have to learn about dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. Both of us could quote from memory a great deal of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. I've taken numerous trainings, as has Lauren. We both understand 504. The day that it dawned on me in an IEP meeting that I understood more about dyslexia and the law than anybody else sitting at that table was a very sad day for me. Because I understood that I was fighting for something that nobody else was going to give me simply because they didn't understand. I'll never forget going into I had a really great deal of pleasure in dragging district heads into my IEP meetings. I really enjoyed that. I really wanted the attorney to take me on. I never had the courage. Because of what I do for a living, I deal with attorneys all the time. And I said, please. He never did.
Like that all the time.
But I went into an IEP meeting. Where is it? These are my binders. This is only a small portion of my binders. These are all of my sons. These are the meeting minutes, the IEP documents, the goal reports, everything else. Report cards, anything related to his dyslexia. I have every piece of paper that child has ever brought home from kindergarten forward. And I hate paper. I'm having a huge bonfire. I live on a cul-de-sac. I'm having a huge bonfire. It's BYOB in June of 2027. Everybody's invited. I'm gonna burn every piece of paper that I have. But it's, yeah, I've even had Orton Gillingham training. But I took all my binders and I put them on the conference room table. I took my rides law book and I put it on the table and I opened it to the section that I've specifically been referenced during that. The head of dyslexia for the district, by the way, negotiation 101, never show your emotions. The head of dyslexia for the district went, and I looked at her and I went, thank you for giving me that victory. I didn't want to learn this. And by the way, because we both work full-time in corporate America, when do we do all this stuff? Pay time off. We burn vacation to attend IEP meetings. We burn vacation to take trainings. The certificate of attendance is my Orton Gillingham, my 30 hours of Orton Gillingham training. I actually scheduled a surgery so I could be on FMLA. The surgery that I have, like timed my surgery is what I mean. So that I was going to be out on FMLA so I could take the training. It was virtual, thank God. But it was an extremely difficult thing for me to get through because I'm recovering from surgery. I was in an extraordinary amount of pain and I'm sitting through 30 hours of OG. It's the only way I could pull it off. It's the only way that I could give myself that vocabulary to have those conversations during those IEP meetings. I shouldn't have had to gone to that kind of a length. But I had to. I wasn't given a choice.
And to her point, these are some of my binders. I did the same thing. Every year I would have another binder and they would get bigger and bigger. I would have IEP meetings where it would be 16 people in the room against me. I didn't flinch.
Yep.
I was like, and they became catered events. I'm not joking. They would have bottled water. They would have snacks for the blood sugar in case anybody got a little in their feelings. I have my blood pressure medication. They knew if they saw me take it, that no one was leaving that room until we were done. So my IEP meetings would last 4 to 6 hours, and numerous times during the year. My attorney, ironically, still has all my binders because it was during shelter in place. So this is the piece I wrote, and this is my best friend, 25 plus years. He learned to read in prison because Gwinnett County ran him out. He was a he was a rising baseball player, but because he skipped school, they sent cops to his house. That started the process. He never got out of that process, and then drugs, and then incarceration again, and it just kept going until he couldn't stop. And we had all mourned him emotionally already. We already knew he was gone, but the day that he actually left, that's a day that is something that I will never forget. And I couldn't go to his funeral. I dropped to my knees and I cried harder than I've ever cried in my life, because that was somebody that had been with me my entire life that I just lost. And that's the statistics with all of my friends. This is professional development I delivered to my district. And Tina was there with me and she saw the faces. So this whiteboard was basically, or the whiteboard, this was the whiteboard of truth. Because principals, administrators, things of that nature don't tend to know that this is the statistics that we're dealing with, right? And so this is just Georgia, this is Georgia's rates. And then if I drill it down by the district, I probably should have taken that out, but whatever, they know me here. The NAV, so this was delivered. And when the principals saw the pipeline to prison and incarceration, dropout, suicide, addiction, dyslexic children, statistics like that's what happens, their faces started to become more and more just like pale. And I was basically just trying to get the point across to them that this is what happens in the classroom every every single day. A kid, you can tell a kid, you know what? Today sucked, come back tomorrow, it'll be great. That kid may never come back. So that's why I was asked to come do that professional development. And I would not be doing my job because Stacy told me to say this. She told me to say, behavior is communication. If you see a kid acting out, don't always assume it's ADHD. Don't always assume it's ODD or OCD. There's a slew of things, and that's something that I do. Dyslexia is never just dyslexia, ever. You're not ever gonna have a pure dyslexic. You're gonna have a kid with about 5 different sidebar diagnoses. That's at bare minimum. And then taking that further, as a mom, here I am again, this picture up here where Tina is in, that's John Corcoran. This was at the Truth About Reading screening in Georgia. That is Comer Yates from Cox Campus, Laura Bowman, Academic Hall. That is what you see in here as well is you see Georgia Board of Education members, because they are all behind what we're doing, and it's all been parent led. This one over here, she sneaks in and she gets the relationships going, and then we all come in and we help. And so they kind of latch on to us. So the gentleman on the far left, his grandson is dyslexic, so he takes this very personal. He's the former chair of the Board of Education in Georgia. He is now the chair of the literacy committee that came out of legislation this year. So there's Ashley, she attended with us. So this is no mom, I'm getting at with this, no mom should ever have to do any of this or ever put their life on hold. Instead of spending time with your kid, you're doing all of this. But this up here was a victory, because we had just won a victory. We had just won legislation. We had just got legislation passed the day before this screening, and that was that we were going to align everything with the science of reading. I prefer to call it structured literacy, but that's just me. Because luckily our representative Bethany is a freshman house rep, and she had kids that would continually come to her that couldn't read, and she couldn't understand why. And so Bethany dropped the bill, and we just, whatever was needed, we swooped in and did it. And so that's how we passed it, but that's also how I got out of the trenches. Was I finally started, or was allowed to start moving out.
So bearing in mind we've got 20 minutes.
Yes.
So why do we as parents know when it's not going well, right? Our kids both have IEPs, we have goals, we're having IEP meetings in my state, we call them ARDs. I'm engaging with teachers, as is she. We left private school and went to public school because somebody told me 504 was the greatest thing since sliced bread. In Texas, we prefer 504 over IDEA. And by the way, that was my sister. I quickly found out my sister was wrong. Won't be the first time, or the last. Ellen, my sister, I really do. But we've made very different choices as parents of dyslexic children. Her child has a GED, not a high school diploma, had 2 felony arrests for drugs in his senior year of high school, his second one at the physical school building itself. My sister spent $100,000 on a 90-day drug rehab facility in the state of Arkansas. He never had remediation. He had pullouts so his test could be written. He's never been taught how to read. He's 22. He's figured some of it out, but he's 22. That shouldn't happen. We see our children still struggling how to read. We see our children still struggling how to write. We're asking for help. We're going to those meetings going, this isn't working. My favorite question, can you show me the evidence behind this particular program that you're choosing to use with my son? Well, it's the program that we use. That's not the question I ask you. Where's the evidence behind the program that you're choosing to use with my son? Well, Mrs. Roberts, this is what I do. comes the evidence. My husband and I made an interesting choice. Because when my son entered public school, because he had already hit the dyslexia wall, and we had already done 180 hours through the Linda Mood Bell program, just to get him reading on grade level going into second grade in public school, we made the conscious choice that we were never going to rely on the school to remediate our child. We were going to fight for it, but we weren't going to trust it. So we always did private tutoring. I'm $100,000 in on private tutoring.
Jesus.
My son just finished 8th grade. I'm $100,000 in 7 years. The average family in the state of Texas is going to spend $12,500 to $15,000 a year on private remediation. That's insane. And who can afford that?
Here we go.
Yeah.
This right here is the out-of-cost pockets that we as parents tend to put out there. So, between Ashley and I both, as it pertains to private evaluations, because if you get if you find a good psychologist that knows how to dig into the psyche of a kid, you're going to keep that one, and you're going to pay whatever they cost.
Yep.
Mine is expensive, but she's amazing because she specializes in the mental health of our children. So between her and I, we've spent about 30 grand on private evals.
For 2 kids.
It's just 2 kids, yes. Structured literacy tutors. So this is where she's come out of pocket because I never had to have a tutor. I had everything was done inside a public school for me. And then the private school. I went to the private school and it's like a college tuition check every single year. And while I was on the receiving end of a lot of financial aid, still making ends meet was horrible. You know what? I yanked my kid a year ago. On Saturday marked a year that he's been out of the brick and mortar setting. We've finally been able to catch up on our bills. I'm not getting phone calls from bill collectors anymore. This is just like, God, I know parents that spend way more than this.
Yeah. I know a family who in 5 years has invested almost $300,000.
And then that takes us to what our kids said. Her son, it makes me angry that I lost 453 hours of my life to a tutor so someone would teach me how to read when all I wanted to do was be at home with my mom. So the reason I didn't have my fun mom was because I was born dyslexic. So not only did they steal my childhood, but they also stole my mom. How is that okay? That was after they both watched The Truth About Reading.
I don't feel as parents that when we go into these meetings, when we make these asks, that we're being in any way, shape, or form unreasonable. Asking for your child to be literate is not an unreasonable question to make. Asking for help and support from the educational establishment that we are, by law, forced to send our children to and expect them to come out educated. It's not an unreasonable question to ask for our children, not just to be literate, because we're both very big writing advocates.
Yeah. That's,
I want them to be able to read and I want them to be able to write. I want them to have grammar, syntax, construct that sentence, lead into writing that paragraph, and from that paragraph, lead into writing however long of an essay or short of an essay. 5-paragraph essay was the bane of my existence in high school.
Yep.
I want them to be able to do all the things because at the end of the day, I want my child, I want her child, I want every child to choose the life that they want to lead on their own terms. Everybody in this room got that choice for themselves. Kareem talked this morning, he speaks to my heart. He's a good friend about self-determination. You know, our country's built on the idea of freedom and self-determination. But yet, when it comes to our dyslexic children, we're fighting a battle that is, I'm going to say it, it's unreasonable, it's hard, and it takes a significant toll on the family.
And that, yeah, I'm gonna do this real. But our solution, for right now, we have
Yes.
decided tutor, our amazing human. I'd known her husband since we were kids, so a lot makes sense about him now. Now that I know his children and all the things going on in the family, I'm like, now it makes sense. Anyway, I knew her husband. She actually came to me and she said, look, let me work with your son. I was like, I don't have the money to pay you. You're expensive. She's like, that's okay. I'm going to charge you exactly what you charge other parents. Nothing. So she's OG trained, Newhouse trained. She's got
Writing Revolution.
Writing Revolution, you name it. She does it. She runs her own private school, hybrid homeschool. We believe in the 4-hour, 4-day-a-week model because kids need to move and have time. So we also have a gifted tutor for math and science. And
Who's trained in all things
Yes.
dyslexia, language-based,
Yes.
absolutely everything.
yeah, our math tutor resides in South Carolina. She works with kids in college. She prepares them for SAT. She's actually right now trying to get my kid into an MIT math camp and doing some crazy stuff with her son too. But this came to be this year because she wanted to pull the trigger. Her son wanted to, and then I had all of these other mamas who were already doing it because the only option we had, I was pulling kids out of school left and right because there was no other option. We'd done public, we did private. None of it worked. The kids didn't feel safe in the environment. So we started this. We've got some bumpy roads, but you know, we're getting there, and we created our own school. And this is what parents are now leaning into. And even people on our Board of Education and the head of the literacy panel actually said, that this is actually probably going to be more of the future. Was that my train?
Yeah.
Oh dear God. That this is probably going to be more of the future of education. And he works in education. Because micropods or pod learning, because the kids feel safe. They have their people and they have that learning. Alright? Now videos?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry guys.
Shoot up the videos real quick.
Adrian, you might wanna not. I don't want you crying again.
But it's,
Alright.
parents are driven to this partly because we're not given a choice for anything else. If we have the means, the capability, frankly the privilege, because this is a choice of privilege
Sorry, I'll see
to
on
be able to do this. This wasn't an easy choice to make. It goes against all of our cultural indoctrination that the brick and mortar is the only way. But frankly, what pulled the trigger for me is being told by the latest psychologist that I hired to evaluate my son that my son has 133 IQ.
Wow.
In 2016, his math was 2 points below gifted. Now it's -3 standard deviations below the mean because he's not taught how he learns. My kid barely passed the 8th grade Algebra 1. He was, what do they call it? We call it a CAP in Texas.
Yeah.
But so it was a high school credit in 8th grade. I don't know what y'all call it in your various states. But it dawned on me, because of the industry that I'm in, I'm surrounded by brilliant people. I work with the most brilliant minds. Truly, I do. I mean, some of these people I'm like, seriously, calm down. But I was like, the only way this kid is ever going to go to college is if I take him out of public school. I can't even put him in private school because there's so much that we have to repair. He wants to go to college, he wants to be an engineer. So this was to enable that.
And then, mind you, with the video, I'm gonna start with mine, then I'll do Ashley's. Mine's a longer one, that's why. Mind you, I've been on top of this since my son was 3 because I was trying to prevent the history of my family from repeating itself, or the past from repeating itself. And this happened, and I had no idea that my son had ever even had these thoughts because we had drilled his psyche, and he was on medication, he was doing all the things, but nonetheless, this was the result. What is it saying? Why won't it hit? Uh-oh. What is it doing? Why won't it play?
I don't know.
Is it because we don't have internet, y'all? Y'all, no. Don't tell me that. I can hotspot. Hold on, y'all. Wait, I shouldn't have to if I'm just playing a video.
7 minutes.
Huh?
You have 7 minutes.
Play.
Ask you a question.
Yeah.
For those families that don't have that choice of privilege, how could we as educators make them feel more supportive?
Hold on, no. I got it.
Is it lack of knowledge of the science? Is it lack of resources? Is it like what?
It's a lot of
God,
things. It's
seriously?
kind of,
I'm
We're
hotspot
truly at the
on
point
this.
where our districts need to make a wholesale change in their ideology. We need the right curriculums in place. We need to recognize that behaviors are communication and understand mental health from a perspective that children are trying to communicate, not that our children are intentionally trying to
Okay,
be
now we
difficult
go.
children
We're on
inside
that
of a
now.
classroom. That's a difficult ideology specifically to crack. I think that it's possible to get there. I hope.
We
I wanna
hope.
believe in my heart that it's possible to get there.
I'm
Our
wondering,
state just passed a winter snap where starting 2024, all of our winter instruction has to be science-based. So we're really fortunate, and it breaks my heart to hear these stories.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so
During pregnancy, when I was like 9 or something, and I was having like the worst time, I'm gonna type it to you.
no, just say it, Sawyer. It's okay. Sawyer, why don't you want to
Give me a
say it?
second.
Why don't you want to say it?
It's weird.
It's what?
There's other people around.
That's my son in the background.
Okay. There.
Oh, look at my chat.
Do it once.
Yeah. That's
Sorry. It's like my literal, that was like the literal reason that I was fighting so hard for you, was so you wouldn't have those thoughts. Then you wouldn't ever have that cross your mind.
let it out.
Going to be immune from you ever thinking or having those thoughts. But I've spent a really long time saying he made it. We made it. And now I find out that even though at a time where I couldn't fight because I was pregnant and because of all the things going on, he literally just thought going away would make everything better. I'm so sorry, baby.
It's okay. I'm not like that anymore.
I know. But all I have to say about that though is you need to understand the reason. The whole reason I fight the way I fight for you is because I never wanted those thoughts to ever enter your brain. Because that's what happened with Aunt Lee. And I almost lost her. I had to keep her awake until they got there and to get her to the hospital. So, my biggest fear when you were diagnosed with dyslexia wasn't dead dyslexia. It was knowing that the odds were not going to be in your favor mentally. Like you were going to get to a spot where you break. And that's why I tried so hard and spent so much time trying to explain to the whole school district and just anybody that would listen, that when kids have dyslexia, it's never just dyslexia. There's so much up underneath them. And schools don't listen to moms when we're out there begging them. So, sorry guys, one more. Get it loaded. This is Graham, or Ashley.
So let's talk about your statement of it's like being sent to war without knowing how to use the weapons. What did you say that about?
Fending for yourself
Where?
everywhere.
Everywhere?
Because while, you can talk to the teachers in the meetings. You won't actually ever know what it was like in the classrooms and being compared to others. And so being compared to others while also just trying made it really hard and made you very defensive.
Me or you? Okay.
Me, it would make the person defensive. As simple as that.
So did you feel like you were being compared every day?
Yes.
Even with the teachers or with all of your teachers, or only with some of them, or
All of them.
all of them?
All of them.
Did you feel like your classmates were comparing you to them, or was it just your teachers?
Also kids.
Who did you get it from the most?
Probably the kids because they didn't know any better.
Okay.
The problem is in that environment, the kids don't know, so it's not the kids' fault, but it's the teacher's fault for indulging that type of behavior from the kids, and also from the teachers knowing from IEP meetings that, you know, the kid has dyslexia and that they might need extra help, and yet the teacher still lets the kids compare each other and compares the worst to the best, even when the worst is probably trying their hardest.
So I'm gonna wrap it up by saying, parents really do know their kids. We really do understand dyslexia. We understand the science of reading. We understand what we're asking for. Parents approach the conversations really and truly believing in their heart of hearts that what we're asking for isn't a hard thing to ask for, and it shouldn't be met with as much emotional defensiveness and fighting back, the pushback, etc., that we are unfortunately faced with. This takes a toll. My son will tell you he wasn't a reader until 4th grade, despite a significant amount of intervention. Now we're dealing with his dysgraphia. He's 14. Now he's in high school. What we're asking for, it's just not unreasonable. But this takes a toll. My son just shared with you how the day-to-day toll in the classroom, which he opted to not tell me until that 2 weeks ago, how he was being beaten down on a daily basis. We pulled to homeschool because I told my husband, you want to grow old with me? I can't keep doing this. I'm going to die. This is killing me. I cannot keep up this fight. It's too hard against a system that refuses to change.
To that, I do want to say that the crying that you saw from me and why she mentioned I'm like one of the meanest advocates or whatever. A lot of my friends have never seen me cry. When I showed the video to Maria, because I wanted to make sure it was okay, her husband had a really hard time making it through. I had another friend who couldn't, because as soon as she saw me cry, she couldn't continue. That version of me that you saw though, that was me every day. I was me because that's all I knew was to fight. Because I couldn't lose my kid, and I didn't learn that my kid wanted to kill himself until that interview. And then it came out that as we progressed, he thought about it up to 3 times a day, every single day. So from a 9-year-old in 3rd grade to a 13-year-old in 7th grade when I ripped him out, he thought about it every single day. And it didn't matter that he had an IEP, he had all the things, he had everything. He didn't come from a broken home, he was read to religiously. I have a librarian as a mother-in-law. He has everything. But hereditary, everything be damned, it still happened. Everything I did to prevent those thoughts still happened. And this is why we need a seat at the used to coming to these conferences, and this is not passion, you're used to coming to conferences and hearing from all the professionals and everybody with the best practices. But we're the parents that are telling you, this is what the best practices look like with our kids. You don't know what it looks like in the classroom. You don't know what it feels like to sit in a meeting full of 16 staff up by yourself and explain and beg. Say, I need a cognitive behavioral therapist. It's in his IEP. Where is it? That's why parents need a seat at the table. That's why we need a seat in here, because we know what it takes to make sure our kids can read, but it shouldn't do it at the cost of our kids being that angry and feeling like they lost their parents.
So, and my final statement, and I'll shut up and let you go because we're past time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Y'all will find parents to be your greatest supporters, your greatest allies, your greatest champions, your greatest